All right, so my background with Mercury's. I've never owned one. I own a lot of cars. But I grew up with a man who was my grandfather, who was a car guy, but forced into retirement early because of health issues, never really had any extra money. But he always talked about Mercury's. He talked the lead sled, 4951, chopped. You know, he had probably a dozen or so diecast cars in his office. None of them were stock. You know, this was the car. There wasn't any more cars in his eyes. Die-hard Ford guy. I was always a GM guy, Cadillacs and pickup trucks and things. Never thought I'd own a car like this because it just didn't seem obtainable. And he could never own one because, like I said, he was pretty much limited to a short Social Security budget that didn't really afford him the pleasures of something like this. He had a 23T bucket the majority of my life, but he couldn't drive it because the open air bothered his lungs. So it kind of just sat for a while. And I always liked that car. It kind of gives me one of the reasons why I like T-buckets so much, even though I'm a gorilla, couldn't fit in one if I wanted to. But this car came about and it just made sense. So I promised my wife that this was the last one. I'm sure everybody's made that promise. This one actually has some meaning. I want to finish it. I want to take my grandma for a ride in it up to visit my granddad because he's been gone 2014, and about 2016 is when we lost him. And it'd been cool to drive around with him in it, but there was no chance I could get a car like this back then. But yeah, me and my son are gonna build it. You'll see a lot of videos of him doing things. You know, I'd like for him to do the welding on the floor. I'd like for him to do the sealing of the floor, and I'm gonna have him. We're gonna rebuild the brakes together, and because he was real close to his grandfather. But that's the background of the story. You know, my reasoning for liking these cars stems from my super cool granddad who got me into hot rodding, and we're gonna stick this one out. We don't know the direction. I just know that it will have a custom grille, French headlights, some sort of taillight treatment. Little to no trim, except for the factory belt line trim. I do like the factory belt line trim. And it'll be lowered, stock, or static. It won't be on air ride or nothing. I do want to maintain a simplistic build. I don't want anything crazy. No fuel injection or nothing like that. Just, we're gonna start with the flathead, and hopefully it'll be drivable with the T5. Really hoping for a car that we can get in and enjoy. I've got stacks of flatheads, so I'm gonna put the one that I have, the Mercury engine's gonna go in it. It's a known good engine. Came out of a 51 Mercury that I watched run. But I want to build another engine. I actually have an 8BA I'd like to start building so that I know I have a nice, reliable heat, water passage is cleaned out. Everything that makes these cars kind of cantankerous, I want to address. Yeah, custom grill. I have a 54 Pontiac grill that I'm getting off of a good friend of mine. It'll be a mild custom. Maybe down the line I'll round the hood corners and all the stuff that everyone does, but I don't know if I'm going to chop it. Chopping it is something that I feel like I'm capable of doing. It scares the hell out of me, but I feel like I'm capable of doing it. But I also know that it's pretty cool without a chop. It doesn't bother me at all. So it's enough rambling. This is video number 1 of building my grandpa's dream car. Stay tuned. Alrighty. This is episode 1 of build back the Mercury. So I cleaned the engine bay. A little bit of before. Moss growing on the dash. Despite what it looks, it's a very, very solid car. That's some small pinholes in the front and some small spots under the pan are the only rust in the floor pan. Still some black paint, factory black paint. Trunk is solid as a rock. Needs outer rockers like most of them. Some small repair to the quarters like most of them. But regardless of the repair, it's still a 51 Mercury two-door coupe. Alright, we're back. Benjamin's working on Grandpa's car. We're gonna get everything, it's all coming out. Walk up there. There you go, there you go. Get a bit, there you go. Look at that. See? Don't get up top. Don't get up there because
It's broken.
Well, no, there's still cloth and stuff up there. I want it to be able to grab.
Oh, why should I do that?
I mean, I don't know what the original color is, but
Look up here.
I know, but it's been primered and sun paint faded away. And good.
The windows.
Yeah, go ahead. I mean, you can't get the inside any wetter than it is, right? Go ahead. Do your thing. I ain't worried about getting wet. Good.
This one's flat. It's tighter.
Oh yeah, it's got two front flats. What Daddy wants to do is get it clean and clean and clean. That way,
Look, Dad.
when I start taking bolts and stuff off, I can see them. Try not to get in here wet, okay? All right. So after day one, we have a degreased and clean engine bay. Sloppy wet garage. But a clean and degreased floor. Day two, which will probably be in a week or so, I'm going to start making patch panels for the floor and the floor pan in the back. And that's about as heavy as I'm going to be on the rust repair for now. because there's no structural rust. It needs outer rockers, needs a patch in that fender. Both quarter extensions need lower panels replaced. But my goal is to just drive it. And I've got a 51 Mercury drivetrain, 255 flathead. I've got a T5. And everything else is going to be stock steering, stock brakes. So the plan of attack is fix the floor, pull the doghouse to get full access to the suspension, change the shocks, change the brakes, hoses, lines, all that, change the master cylinder, and rebuild or change the front, whatever has to be done. I have another axle from a friend that's a little better gearing for the T5. I don't know what this one is, but to look at the car, it doesn't show any signs of having overdrive. So I'm assuming it was just a standard 3-speed. But I don't know for sure. But with that being said, it's not. I do have a stock overdrive unit from a 51, but this one is not staying 6 volt. And I'm not paying to convert a 3-speed transmission to a 12 volt when I've got a great T5 already adapted to a flathead. It's gonna need windows. Mostly just the side windows right now. It's gonna need new seals. But all that stuff is gonna come in time. My main focus is to get it mechanically ready. I'm gonna drive it just like this. Not a huge fan of the patina look anymore. I was when I was younger. But I'd much rather have a solid color car. It's just not in the books right now. I plan on doing as much of this as I can myself. And I'm not a painter, so it's just amazing. This car doesn't look like much to the layman, but it is as solid as they come by way of 49 to 51 Mercury coupes nowadays. And for a car that has literally not been touched, nothing has been modified, nothing has been, air quotes, customized. It is just a clean slate. You know, I struggle with the fact that these cars look beautiful chopped, but for every unchopped car, there's 100 chopped cars. So my demon that I currently struggle with is whether or not I cut up one of the remaining non-chopped cars. It will definitely have French headlights and door. I want to do Lincoln door buttons. You know, I want to do Lincoln door buttons. I'd like to do flush mount skirts. That's always been something I enjoyed on these cars. But taillights, I don't know which direction I would like to go on taillights. I really don't mind having no taillights on the back and putting them in the overriders. I always thought that was a good look. And the contour and the way the rear quarters drop on these cars lend themselves well to that. This is the only damage I can find on the car. And it looks like somebody replaced an entire quarter. See, it's all gas welded together. Big old nasty booger weld in there. But that's the only damage on this car outside of rust. I'm blessed to have found this car. And it was literally down the road from me. When I set out to find a Mercury, I looked at a handful of really bad cars that were in my price range. thinking that I was going to buy less of a car for my budget, just because that was the reality of it. You know, I was looking to buy a car under $5,000, and it didn't have to be a coupe. It was just a bonus if it was. I definitely don't hate the 4-doors. But it was just by chance. A good friend of mine drove this from Southern Ohio, and wasn't going to do anything with it. He didn't have any love for it. It's not really his style. So I reached out to him, bugged him for a little while, and one day I caught him, made an offer, and it's mine. He even dropped it off.